All right, you want to lose 30 pounds in 90 days? Yeah, I bet. Who doesn't? You want to do it, and you want it to be extremely easy. Of course. I can do this. I can make this happen. I can even show you. But the reality is, you know you, and I have a feeling I know you too. But anyway, welcome to Walk, Talk, Vent. Let's do this.
Hi guys, welcome back. Imagine growing up in a household where you're raised vegetarian, and then imagine as you become a teenager and young adult, people start to talk to you about the benefits of adding a little meat to your diet. Well, Being Tegan is a YouTuber that I wanted to share with you guys next, and what she's going to do is describe that exact situation. Vegetarian, all of a sudden she's thinking about adding meat to her diet, and she's conflicted. Let's hear what she has to say.
I spent my entire life as a vegetarian. My parents raised me vegetarian, and as soon as I could decide for myself, I was vegetarian. My main motivation was that I didn't want an animal to die so that I could eat it. So from a young age, I was avoiding everything from fish to leather to gelatin. Anything that involved an animal's death, I wanted no part of. I remember when I was about 8 years old, I discovered that marshmallows and gummy bears contain gelatin, which is a big no-no for ethical vegetarians. And even from that age, I was so committed to the idea of being vegetarian and doing no harm to animals that I immediately cut out some of my favorite sweets. And then when I was a teenager, I came across a vegan documentary on Netflix. And those will get you. You watch them late at night and you're like, I am all about protecting animals. I'm going vegan tomorrow morning. Like, it's happening. And after that, I would say I had an even deeper concern for animal welfare to the point where I was vegan for a few years. This meant that I further restricted myself in terms of not eating dairy or eggs, anything from an animal where I didn't know it was well taken care of. I think one of the big ways that I would identify myself, like when I was meeting new people, for example, was to explain that I was vegetarian. And it was never something that I pushed onto other people. I only talked about it really when it came up in terms of going out to eat, for example. So I never tried to push my beliefs about being vegetarian on other people, because growing up, a lot of people tried to get me to eat meat, and even to the point where they were waving meat like right in my face. It's like, dude, that's gross, stop. So I never.
So if you do that to a vegan or vegetarian, right, it is kind of bad. You don't want to be trying to entice them to eat meat. But at the same time, her parents kind of did that to her as a baby. They never really gave her the option if she wanted to try meat. I don't think there's anything wrong if a young adult or a teenager, wants to give up meat and go vegetarian, as long as it makes sense, right? But at the same time, it's such a staple in our food, in our everyday lives. It must be really difficult to hang out with somebody like this, knowing that, every meal is going to potentially be a challenge.
Never wanted to be that person to someone else. But at the same time, it was still something that I would tell people, like, hey, this is me. This is who I am. I could never, ever imagine eating meat. That was not a possibility in my lifetime. If you had asked me just a few years ago, it would not have been a consideration. I would say that I was a vegetarian through and through from birth to death. That was me. And then a couple years ago, I met some people who pushed back on my beliefs. They brought up different concerns that I'd never really given any deep thought to before. They were asking things like, hey, you're eating a higher carb diet. Do you think that's really the healthiest thing for you? You have fewer options for complete and nutrient dense proteins as a vegetarian compared to someone who eats animal proteins, where those are going to be complete. They also brought up the concern about phytoestrogens from soy and other plant products and how those can interrupt and mess with your estrogen production. And, messing with hormones, that's pretty scary stuff. And I never really thought about it in the long term in terms of what is my life going to be like down the road? And so my friends would say that overall, because you're vegetarian, you may not be getting all of the nutrients that you need, which means you would need to supplement. The problem there is that means you would no longer be eating nature's food. You would be eating some warped version of food and nutrients.
So here's the thing. How do you go up to a young lady that looks healthy as all heck and start telling her that, she might not be getting all the nutrients she needs? It sounds a little weird. If it really did happen, great. I don't think there's anything wrong with vegetarians. I noticed growing up, the few people that I met that were vegetarian or vegan, they seemed a little skinny, like maybe they didn't eat as well as the rest of us. But, I know there's challenges with their diets, right? I would imagine that would be a real repetitive diet. I've eaten so many bananas over the last couple weeks that it's really difficult for me to want to keep eating bananas, right? I couldn't imagine if all you were doing was eating fruits and vegetables all the time. It's crazy to me. Not crazy, but crazy to me.
But my answer was always, I do it for the animals. If it's maybe not that healthy, then that's okay. I don't care. But over time, I kept hearing from people who were ex-vegan and ex-vegetarian who really found that eating meat was giving them energy. They felt better. There was this one lady that I know who actually experienced hair loss when she went vegetarian. And then when she reverted back to eating meat, she said her hair started growing out longer and thicker and fuller, overall looking healthier. And I never even considered that your diet would affect things like that. So little by little, my resolve, my belief in vegetarianism started to wane. But I'd say the real first chink in my armor was vegan leather. Like I mentioned earlier, I was committed to it. I wouldn't wear leather, so I would instead buy vegan leather or pleather. But then there was the thought of, okay, so where does vegan leather come from?
I think it comes from China. I bought these shoes that were vegan leather. I get them and they felt so plasticky. Amazon lets you take them back. Thank goodness.
And it turns out it's plastic. And then you work through what plastic is doing to our environment. And it made me wonder, how many animals end up dying so that we can have vegan material? I felt really lied to by the vegan and vegetarian community, because this whole time I thought I was helping save animals. I thought I was doing the good thing, but I may have actually been doing more harm than good. I had all of these new questions and concerns, so I did what most people do, and I turned to the internet. Right off the bat, I found evidence that I should totally eat meat for sure. There were a number of proponents of the carnivore diet. There were hormone specialists, dietitians saying, yeah, meat's really good for you. You really need it. Then I Googled if it's better to be vegetarian, and I found medical articles and influencers saying meat is horrible for you. You're going to die younger, and you're going to get all of these diseases if you eat meat. So
Yes, guys, it's amazing. If you take a deep dive into YouTube, you'll see exactly what Tegan here is describing. You've got people on the vegetarian or vegan side. You've got people on the keto and carnivore side, right? And they all seem to have a little inner war with one another, debating which diet is best. I think they all have some challenges to them. They all have a little bit of self-punishment that I'm not a big fan of. I know it's called willpower, but still.
do not eat meat. Like, what do you do when either side is saying it's terrible for you? Do my thing instead. So I decided to talk to some people around me, people who espoused vegan, paleo, keto, fruitarian. Everyone could point to a study or some source or reasoning and logic as to prove that their diet was the best for you. So just like online, all this advice I got in person completely contradicted one another. Everyone claimed that their diet was the best, literally opposite diets. This was literally the weirdest position I'd ever been in. Usually everything has an answer and I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. What do you do when there's no clear-cut answer?
You never think about that, right? What's better, vegetarian or carnivore? Is there something in the middle? What makes more sense? What are most people doing and having success on? If you were to look on YouTube, you would never be able to come up with a decision. There's just everything out there from one side to the other. With that being said, go grab your shoes. Let's go for a walk. Well, hello and happy Sunday, Venters. Today is day number 35 in our quest to lose 30 pounds. It would be very easy for any of us to lose focus and quit on ourselves. But I'll be here for you, and you'll be here for me, and we'll be here for each other. Remember, I can do this, you can do this, we can do this. Let's do this.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend or start to your weekend. Right now, I had a situation where I woke up a little late, but it's Saturday for me, so no big deal. But instead of being in the 60s, it's already in the 70s. And once again, I think we're going to get into the 90s here today in Phoenix. But right now, you know, the sun feels warm, but it feels nice. There's a slight little breeze that feels really, really pleasant. I hope you're having a wonderful time out there wherever you are. I wanted to tell you some fun stories. I looked up this website called the Good News Network, and I was reading some of the stories, and I actually found myself feeling better about things. So guys, if you ever want to join me on the Good News Network, check out the Good News Network online, and they have really neat little stories. And so I wrote down a couple because I thought it'd be nice to share it with you. Now, this first story doesn't surprise me. America has more bilingual folks now than France, Germany, Spain, and England, which I thought was kind of interesting. And, France, Germany, and England. I don't know if it has Spain outdone with regards to bilingual folks. But I thought that was really fascinating. Now, I think we might have more population than all those countries combined, so that might be why, but I know a lot of people that are bilingual where they speak Spanish as well as English. And then, of course, whenever folks visit us from countries overseas, such as France and Germany and Spain and stuff, a lot of times they're naturally bilingual as well. So, you know, I guess it makes sense, right? I have a funny feeling that there's probably a lot of times throughout history where America had more bilingual folks than other countries because, you know, even if you go back to like the 1700s and the 1800s and the 1900s, we probably had quite a few immigrants come in from other parts of the world. So I thought that was kind of cool. You know, out here in Arizona, one of the things that we try to tell young people is that it's really good to learn Spanish. And I think it wouldn't be bad to try to learn Mandarin, right? I mean, if China's going to take over the world eventually, we might as well learn how to speak their language, right? Just kidding. Anyway, if you do learn Mandarin, though, or if you know how to speak any of the Chinese dialects, let us know. I think that's really super interesting. If you're bilingual, let us know. I have flashcards for Spanish, and every now and then I watch this show called Caso Cerrado, Case Closed, and I try to kind of make out the words, and I actually am able to make out a little bit of Spanish, and if it's written on paper, I can make out a little bit more. But if somebody were to speak it to me, I don't think I'd be able to respond very well. But again, if you're bilingual, let us know. I think that's such a neat thing that you can communicate with more than one type of people around the world, and you can serve as a translator for your friends that don't. So very, very cool. Out here in Arizona, if you get jobs, a lot of times they'll offer you a certain wage, right, for doing the job. But if you're bilingual, a lot of times you end up earning like 50 cents to $1.50 more per hour. And I'm sure it goes up from there, right? So very, very cool. Great skill to have. And yeah, that's one of those things where I wish I wish I was a better artist. I wish I knew how to speak multiple languages, right? I wish I knew how to do computer programming and different things. And I guess all of those things are things that we can overcome and learn, right? And get into. If you have been thinking about increasing your skill set by becoming bilingual, learning a foreign language, learning more about computers, learning how to do a YouTube channel, whatever the case might be, if you've been trying to do some self-improvement outside of just walking and exercise, let us know. I think whenever we learn a new skill or a new craft or a new hobby that we can undertake, I think it increases our mental strength, and it makes us a little happier on the inside. So our mental well-being, that would be a better word. I never really ask you guys too much. I always talk about being outside in the sun and how I enjoy feeling, the atmosphere of just being outside. Have any of you guys kind of gone from working out or walking inside to maybe walking outside since watching this channel? If you have, let us know what your thoughts are on walking outside. Do you actually find that you enjoy it maybe more than you thought? So anyway, yay America, we have a lot of bilingual people. That's an awesome thing. Now I know some people might say, well, that's because of all the people crossing the border, but hey, if they come over and they already know English, that's a huge thing. It's kind of a tough deal when you want to communicate in a country, but you don't speak the language. But if you come over and you're already bilingual, then heck, that's a great skill set. This next story made me smile. I thought this was the coolest thing. Sometimes in life, we have a situation where a mistake occurs or an accident might occur, right? Let's say you accidentally are up at a stoplight and somebody accidentally clips your bumper, right? They forget to stop fully. Maybe they're half asleep and they end up coming out to make sure you're okay and there's nothing wrong with your car, no whiplash or injuries. And imagine becoming a friend with that person, right? Now that's a weird example and I didn't read about that, but that's just what my mind thinks of when sometimes good things can come from accidents. So check this out. In Elgin, Oregon, and this was earlier this month, apparently there's a salmon hatchery for the salmon fish that we were talking about the other day. Because mommy hasn't showered. If you remember, she quit her cabbage soup diet because somebody threw some salmon in her face and she opened her mouth and bit into it and loved it, right? And then we didn't hear any more about her cabbage soup diet. Well, check this out. This Elgin, Oregon truck filled with over 100,000 salmon, little hatchlings, so in other words, baby salmon. It falls over and most of the fish survive because it fell over and the fish fell into a place called Looking Glass Creek. If you live in Oregon, have you ever been to Looking Glass Creek? And did you know that a bunch of salmon, little hatchlings, just fell in there on accident? So imagine the diesel truck or the vehicle that has these hatchlings falls over and ends up populating the Looking Glass Creek. That's amazing. That reminds me of a story that once I went to Water World, which I believe is now Hurricane Harbor. It's a Six Flags theme park. And by the way, since Six Flags took it over, it went from being a 3 or 4 story water park, 3 or 4 star water park, and now it's like a 1-star water park. I haven't been to it since it became Hurricane Harbor, but apparently Six Flags is a little behind the 8 ball when it comes to, hiring really good employees and maintaining upkeep on their parks, because from what reviews have told me, reviewers say that with regards to Hurricane Harbor, it's just kind of run down and not the same. But still, one time I was there, and instead of putting my keys in the locker, I put my keys into a plastic Ziploc baggie, and I put that baggie in my swim trunks. And I think I even had a little Velcro tab. I think that's what gave me the confidence to keep it in my swim trunks when I should have just put it in the locker, right? So anyway, Waterworld at the time had probably, probably 5,000, 6,000 kids and adults walking around, right? And I'm in this water park with these keys in my pocket. And keep in mind, these are important keys. It's to my vehicle, it's to my house, the whole 9 yards, right? And all of a sudden, I feel for my keys and they're gone. They're gone. And my stress level went from like 0 to 1,000, just like that, right? And I was really feeling bummed. And I go around to a couple of different lifeguards. And I go, hey, did anybody turn in a bag of keys, right? And looking back, I guess it's not that big of a miracle that somebody did, but I'm so used to things getting lost and then you never see them again or never hear from them again, right? But ultimately, they got on their little walkie-talkie and they said, yeah, somebody turned in a Ziploc with keys, right? So I end up going to the main office there, picking up my keys, no harm, no foul. And then as I'm walking out of the theme park to get into my car and take off, I noticed that one of the vehicles in the front row of the parking area has this license plate that says Believe. And I don't know, I just felt like it was a little sign from the big guy upstairs letting me know that, you don't always have to freak out for every bad situation. And it ended up being a good situation because I kind of looked at it like, hey, there are good people out there. People aren't just going to grab your keys and throw them in the trash or take them home with them, And like I said, as an adult, I look back and I think, well, why would anybody want a bag full of keys? It makes sense that they would turn it in. But sometimes we can be poisoned, right? Where we kind of expect bad things to happen. Maybe we need to get out of that mindset, Instead of wondering, is this diet and exercise plan going to be yet another one that I fail? I've been through veganism, I've been through vegetarianism, I've been through keto, I've been through the, Atkins diet, I've been through this, that, and the other. Maybe instead of wondering if this is the next one that's going to fail, maybe we just say, hey, I have a feeling this one's going to be the one that succeeds. There's a lot of power in belief. And if you can stay positive, you're going down the right path. If you can stay negative, it seems like things never work out. So it's kind of like you're going to be right either way, right? If you believe that something's going to work for you, there's a better chance it will. And if you believe something's not going to work for you or with you, you're probably right, But anyway, back to the Elgin story. Whenever you have a situation where that many little hatchlings, 100,000, and the truck falls over on its side, and magically the tank holding these fish pours them all into the creek, or a great majority. I'm sure a couple of them lost their lives, and there might have even been some bigger fish in that creek that got a really good day that day as far as food, right? But either way, when they survive, what that tells me is that you're probably going to have a creek there that has quite a few salmon that maybe the locals can catch, or maybe the wildlife there can feed on. Or who knows, might be an invasive species for all I know, but it didn't mention that in the article, so I'm just going to assume it was a positive thing. I always poke fun at California and New York. I always talk a little bit angrily about those places, but it's only because when I was young, I saw those places as landmarks here in America for us to be proud of, right? You had California with its beaches and Disneyland and the sunshine, right? And then with New York, you had an international hub where people from all around the world could come together and help make America the #1 nation on the planet, right? Or one of the best nations on the planet, I should say, countries. There's a place in New York City, it's a cafe where they hire and train people with autism and Down syndrome. It's called Cafe Joyeux, Joyeux. So it's got like a Cajun sound to it, right? Or a French sound. And for them to hire folks with Down syndrome and autism is just wonderful. I'm a recruiter, so a lot of the schools that I staff for, they need special education teachers. And by the way, if you're in college and you're kind of contemplating a major, if you could get into teacher education, that would be a beautiful thing. These kids need good teachers. And some of the teachers that we have in the schools now are a little burnt out. It's a tough, challenging job. And the best way we could help them is to bring in some reserves. And I don't mean more contract teachers. The problem with contract teachers is they always want to make as much money as they can. And so they'll ditch one school for another, and that doesn't really solve a problem. You know, you're leaving one school empty-handed while you help out another one because they pay you an extra couple bucks an hour, which again, you can't blame people for doing. But back to you. If you're in college right now and you're listening to this and you haven't decided on a major, but you always enjoyed being in the classroom anyway, why don't you contemplate being a teacher? It's the best profession in the world. And although not all teachers get paid greatly, they do have a pretty decent retirement plan. So imagine you retire and you get Social Security like everybody else, but imagine on top of that, you get your teacher's pension. So even though a lot of teachers like to talk about how they're kind of underpaid in the present, a lot of them actually do better when they retire. And then on top of your retirement and pension, if you're bored, you can get a little part-time job, and before you know it, you're making more in retirement than you were when you were working. So remember, not everything is so cut and dry, so black and white. Sometimes people that might be struggling on the surface might actually have a good plan for the future, and other people might be doing really well in the present, but they might not be saving their money and planning for their future. So either way, things are not always as they appear, are they? So check this out. One of the employees, her name is Rachel Barcelona. She said that she was rejected countless number of times because she felt, because of her condition, right, with Down syndrome. Hi, how are you? And she might have had autism. It didn't really speculate if she was one with autism or Down syndrome, but she said she was rejected countless numbers of times. And now, not only does she have a job, but she gets paid. How fun is that? You know, sometimes when you get that first paycheck, and you look past that FICA guy that takes all the money out of it, right? And you see what money that you get to put in your bank account, that is a huge sense of pride for people. And I feel so happy on this story because, again, it would be really easy just to hire a person that doesn't have Down syndrome or doesn't have autism. I've seen some videos of YouTubers that are adults and they're like, yeah, I have autism, right? Or yeah, autism. But they seem like a regular YouTuber to me. But apparently, autism is something that I guess you can kind of grow out of into your 20s. A lot of them are aware that, you know, their social habits aren't necessarily on par with, you know, people that don't have autism. But at the same time, they still seem like wonderful people. And same with people with Down syndrome. I've met, and I'm sure you have too, I've met probably a dozen or more people with Down syndrome throughout my life. They always seem like they're smiling. They always seem like they're very, very happy people. And I think there's something to be said about people that have a smile pasted onto their hearts. I don't know about you, but when I meet a stranger, if he or she is smiling and in a good mood, it makes me want to smile and be in a good mood too. Every now and then you meet a stranger and it's like, oh my God, that guy gave me a cold, prickly feeling, or that woman made me feel horrible. You know? One of my pet peeves is when you walk by somebody that's obviously a complete stranger and you say good morning or hello, or you nod your head and they just kind of walk around like walk through you like they didn't see you. I've never really thought about it, but some of them might have some situations where maybe they're a little fear of meeting new people, or they might have some social anxiety. But now I'm going to start looking at it like that. So while I would love if everybody said good morning back to me, maybe I'll just tell myself they have adult autism. That's probably not too good to visualize on people. But anyway, how does that make you feel? Isn't that kind of cool? Some of us might have relatives or family members that are dealing with Down syndrome or autism or any other emotional or behavioral disorders. there is hope, right? You always got to try to maintain hope. And stories like that make me very, very hopeful. So those are some good stories for the day. If you have a good story that you've heard, please share it with me. I promise I will do the homework. I will look up the article about it or the story, and I will tell our viewers, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to start telling you, hey, I found another good story that I'd like to share. One of the things that we complain about with our news nowadays is all they ever focus on is negative, sad, horrible stories, because those sell more news, right? They get more clicks. But I wouldn't mind being part of a network of news like the Good News Network, where they actually put some happy stuff up. So that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start checking out that website every couple of days just to see if they put up a new fun story. There was also another story about, I guess we're planning on putting a gas station up in orbit, I guess for the vehicles that are constantly up there, or the space station and stuff. And I just thought to myself, I bet they already have a gas station up there that's top secret and they just haven't told us, you know? I don't even know how that would work. I always figured all that stuff works on rocket fuel and stuff, but I didn't read the article, to be honest, so maybe I'll take a look at it later. I woke up so late, I was just fearful of the heat. Look at this pretty baby. Hi, how are you? There is a little chihuahua. No, that little chihuahua is all by itself. There's a chihuahua up ahead and it's running away. And chihuahuas are smarter than you think, though. They're the dogs that'll run out of their house, run down the street, and then when you try to pick them up or talk to them, they'll run back to their house. I've seen chihuahuas do that all the time. The chihuahua is the type of dog that'll go under your fence to get out, and before you even know he or she's gone, they'll dig right back under your fence and come back home. Chihuahuas are amazing little dogs. Are they my favorite dogs? Heck no. Heck no. Chihuahuas remind me of staple eaters. Have you ever taken a staple eater and you dig out a staple from a piece of paper, right? Those staples, that reminds me of Chihuahua's teeth. Because every time I see a Chihuahua, God, they're ready to attack. Oh my goodness. Meanest dogs ever, huh? Holy moly. Yeah, for some reason, the big dogs that growl and make me a little fearful are the German Shepherds. The nicest dogs to people are usually the pit bulls. Have you noticed that? They're really nice to people, but they can be really dangerous to other dogs. Can be. Your pit bull, if you take care of it, could be the sweetest, nicest dog in the world. The only problem with that is, if you own a pit bull, you kind of want him or her to have a little bit of a mean protective streak, right? Because if some guy tries jumping in your house in the middle of the night, you'd like to think that your pit bull would actually attack him rather than licking him to death like, maybe your lab would. That's what's crazy. We always look at our labs and our golden retrievers and we think, hey, Rufus will protect me. He knows better. There's a good chance Rufus will lick the intruder while he's trying to hit you, So, but then again, there's pros and cons, right? If you end up getting a pit bull, they're kind of famous for every now and then attacking a child. Is that fair to say for all of them? Of course not. Again, if you have a pit bull, there's a good chance your pit bull would never attack any child. But I hear stories about it at least once or twice a year, And again, those are negative stories. Let's get those out of our heads. I want this weekend to be positive for us. Every weekend in my neighborhood, somebody has a yard sale somewhere. Is your neighborhood like this? When you're on your walks, take a look at those yard sales. Sometimes they might be little estate sales that just haven't put an ad in the paper. And you might be able to get some really neat stuff from somebody that's, left the planet, so to speak. And usually when estate sales are up, that's when you can get really nice watches for pennies on the dollar. You can get really nice clothing that's been in somebody's closet forever that they haven't worn. So if you're not a big fan of garage and yard sales, you should still give a chance to estate sales. Good stuff. So we're going to be walking by a yard sale now. Remember my thoughts on yard sales. you want to be able to sell some good stuff. So put some fun stuff out. This place has video games and puzzles, owls. Our school here that I went to, the Acacia School, our mascot was the owl. And I always thought the owl was kind of goofy and lame growing up. If you remember, the owl is on the, how many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop? But I think it's the turtle that comes up with the answer, right? Or is it the owl? I forget. 1, 2, 3, crunch. 3. I can still remember that. So anyway, I used to think owls were kind of lame, but I don't know if you've ever seen video of them hunting. Wow, they are amazing creatures. There's this video I saw on the Joe Rogan show where it shows 2 like hawks, and they're little baby hawks, but they're pretty big, birds, even as babies. And they're both just sitting there in their nest looking at each other. And there's a camera right there. Like whoever, the man or woman that lives there, put up a camera so you can see these baby hawks. And again, these baby hawks look pretty good size. They might even be adult hawks for all I know. But anyway, you see these glowing eyes in the background. And these glowing eyes swoop in. And this owl grabs one of the baby hawks and is out of the frame within the snap of a finger, within, the blink of an eye. And the crazy thing is not the fact that an owl came and snatched the hawk. The crazy thing is that the hawk that was left over is looking around like, what the hell happened? Because it was that fast. Could you imagine you're there with your brother or sister, and all of a sudden you're there alone and you never see your brother and sister again? I mean, it might have been a UFO abduction for all we know. Very, very freaky. Hey, so you know how sometimes I tell you the UFOs are actually American and that the UFOs are not true, but yet you'll see occasionally I have a UFO in my background, right? Background shots. I love UFOs. I love the idea of aliens. But here's a question I want you to ponder. Every year in this country alone, we have tens of thousands of people that go missing. Wouldn't that be crazy if we actually did communicate with aliens at the highest levels of the government, secret black ops type stuff? Wouldn't that be crazy if all those abductions were aliens that came down and they actually ate us? Right? We're thankful that there's not millions of them on our planet, but what if there's a couple thousand living in the interior or under the ocean, right? And all they do is come out every couple of days and abduct people so they can eat them. And we know about this, but we can't say anything. Because if we did say anything, there'd be mass panic. And everybody that ever lost a family member would be, up in arms like, these aliens are eating my family members, I know it sounds crazy, but I always thought it was weird that we humans have blunted teeth and very little hair on our bodies. That sounds to me like a perfect food source, doesn't it? And God, wouldn't that be crazy if that's why they didn't tell us about their presence? So we have me on every other day where I'm like, these things don't exist. It's just black op warfare from our McDonnell Douglas and, different companies that we fund here for our defenses, right? And then some days I'm like, but what if it is real? How exciting. Only I can get exciting from aliens eating us, But yeah, if I'm ever walking out and you see a UFO abduct me, I guess you won't see the footage because I'm not live, but I think I would do live videos if I had, maybe 10,000 subscribers or viewers, something where you knew they were watching, I don't want to do a live video and nobody watch live. And I'm willing to wait. My last handful of videos have gotten less and less views, and I think that's because it's really hard to do a walking routine. There's a lot of people that can say, oh, I want to change my life. I want to start doing positive things. I want to walk. I want to exercise. I want to diet. But when people fall off, sometimes they fall off permanently. And then on YouTube, there's so many choices, right? You might decide, hey, I don't want to do the walking thing with Jesse. I want to do the weightlifting thing with so-and-so. I don't have a problem with that. I just want everyone to know that if you ever leave the channel because you think the grass is greener, come back and see me again. Come back and see me again. This is a channel that I just want everyone to know. My game plan is to keep it up forever. And gosh, such a beautiful day. I won't be saying that in about 20 or 30 minutes when it gets up in the 80s here, but I want to wish you a wonderful day. Stay positive. Things are going to start changing for you and me. Things are going to start being great. We're going to be going into that next season. Pretty soon you're going to be forced to have to go shopping for some new clothes, but it'll be a good day. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, Venters.